With gastrointestinal issues sharply on the rise, a condition that you may be facing is leaky gut. Leaky gut can cause havoc in your entire body, and so that's why it's so important to identify the top 10 warning signs that most doctors miss. Hi Wellness Warrior, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and as I mentioned, leaky gut can cause havoc in your entire body. So let's go ahead and break down the top 10 warning signs, but I first want to start with what is leaky gut, because this is something that we want to truly understand so that we can get well and overcome this health problem. Now, leaky gut is when you start to develop small gap junctions within the intestinal linings. Now, these gaps are allowing things that do not belong into the bloodstream. I mean, that's the whole point of your digestive system, is to protect it, well, first of all, to digest your food, but also stop many of these foods from getting into your bloodstream. But when you have leaky gut, you get small particles of food, you get bacteria, you get yeast, you have all kinds of different things that are in your intestines pouring over into your bloodstream that should not be there. And it can cause a lot of different symptoms such as constipation, diarrhea, extreme fatigue, food sensitivities, and even migraines. And then of course, because you're not digesting your food properly, one of the things that will also happen is you'll typically get some nutrient deficiencies with this. So what we have to look at with this issue is, first of all, how it happens, right? Because we're going to get to the warning signs, but how is this happening in the first place? Because you can know all the warning signs out there, but the reality is if you're not stopping it from happening, then you can't fix this thing, right? So let's take a look at the common causes of leaky gut. So first on our list is going to be if you have a parasitic infection, so maybe you have parasites that have been in your intestines for years and you're not doing anything about it, bacterial infections, or even a fungal infection in your gastrointestinal system. It's very often that when I'm taking care of somebody, we can see that there's some sort of infection based off their blood cells in their body, and we know that we have to address this in order to get them well. So these are very common. You know, a lot of people see this stuff and they're like, oh, you know, parasites, that's like third world country stuff. No, it is absolutely not. Bacterial infections in the gut, absolutely not. This is so common. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, because the number one thing that I help people with, and the number one thing that people seek me out from around the world to help them with, is going to be gastrointestinal issues. Now, also, taking pharmaceuticals is very hard on the intestinal lining. I mean, if you look at many of these different pharmaceuticals out there, they tell you directly on the bottle it may cause bleeding in your stomach. So we have to make sure that we're watching out for these in, reading, of course, labels and side effects. So if you have IBS or irritable bowel disease, okay, so if you have somebody if you're someone who's facing this and maybe you went to your doctor and you got a diagnosis for this a long time ago, then you're going to want to make sure that this is something that you are trying to get fixed up and not just letting it go on unchecked. Next on our list is chronic inflammation. If you are someone who is under a lot of inflammatory stress in your body, you really have to make sure you're doing everything you can to lower it, because not only does it lead to heart disease and cancer and everything else, but it will also cause leaky gut. So chronic stress, that's another factor. Insulin resistance, okay, this is one that most people don't know about, causing really bad gut issues, but the reality is whenever somebody who has really bad diabetes or insulin resistance issues, whenever you check their gut health is terrible, okay? So that's why it's like, if you're somebody who's suffering from insulin resistance, don't think that it just starts with like fixing up the liver and stuff. You also have to fix the gut. Strenuous exercise over a long period of time can lead to this. Food allergies, okay? Now, if you're somebody who has a gluten sensitivity, if you are sensitive to dairy and you continue to ignore the warning signs, all the chronic diarrhea, you continue to ignore that and you just continue to eat wheat and you continue to eat dairy regardless of all that, it can cause a lot of inflammatory responses in the gut and eventually leaky gut. Crohn's disease. So if you have ulcerative colitis, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, any of these different issues, there's a good chance you're also dealing with a leaky gut issue. And then some of the less common causes, very common, but it's not going to affect the average person. And that is, if you're taking chemotherapy, so if you're going through a cancer treatment, and also if you are someone who is drinking excessive amounts of alcohol, those are also reasons. Now, the cause or the symptom, right? This is something we have to really look at here, because many of these things are interesting because they're common causes of leaky gut. However, it's like when you look at the reality there, not only can they cause it, but leaky gut can cause them, okay? So if you're someone who develops leaky gut, then there's a good chance you could develop also a bacterial infection or a yeast infection or a fungal infection. You also are going to likely develop chronic inflammation in the gastrointestinal lining, gastritis, right? So we have to make sure that we realize that some of these things are a cause, some of these things are a symptom, but either way it's important to address them. So let's look at the 10 signs that you may be facing leaky gut, because these top 10 signs are what you're going to first use to identify that there's a problem. And then of course we're going to talk about what you do about something like this. So first on our list is going to be nutritional deficiencies. Okay, if you're somebody who's suffering from nutritional deficiencies constantly and it just doesn't make any sense, let's say you're going and you're getting your blood taken and you're looking for nutrient deficiencies in your body and you constantly have them, and you're eating a good, well-rounded, balanced, healthy diet, well, then there's a good chance leaky gut could be the reason. You're just not absorbing your food properly, right? And this is really the damage with most of these gut conditions that exist, is that you have a hard time breaking down your food and extracting the nutrients that is within the food. So some of the common deficiencies that you'll see is like an iron deficiency, a B12 deficiency, and also a magnesium deficiency, okay? So those are the common ones that you'll see. The next thing on our list here that we have to look at is going to be intestinal problems. So if you have like gas and bloating and you're having bouts of constipation and diarrhea, this all can be due to the fact that you're suffering from leaky gut, okay? So don't ignore these signs. It's like I see people who have chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea and they're like, oh, it's because honestly, I don't think they really have a reason that they put to it, but they just ignore it, right? They just ignore that all this is happening, and it's not smart. Make sure you're addressing this. The next is going to be food sensitivities and allergies. Now, if you're somebody who is constantly becoming sensitive to like every food that you eat, there's a good chance you have leaky gut, because what happens is as you're eating these different foods and then your body is going and trying to digest them, these small food particles are going into the bloodstream, and of course they don't belong there, so your immune system starts to react to those different foods. So all of a sudden you're somebody who defines some food that you decide you really like. Let's just say you start eating a whole bunch of strawberries and all of a sudden you're sensitive to those and you're like, okay, those don't sit well. Let me try almonds. I really like almonds. You start eating almonds and then you become sensitive to those, or cashews, or whatever. The list goes on. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like you start eating that food regularly, you become sensitive to it, there's a good chance that you have leaky gut, okay? Now, extreme fatigue. This is another big factor, and there's a lot of reasons for it. It's because with leaky gut, you are going to rev up your immune system, which is going to be very energy demanding, but the other reason is because you're not getting proper nutrition, right? Whenever you develop these gut conditions, as I've mentioned multiple times, your nutrition will suffer because you're not extracting the nutrients from the food. So extreme fatigue. Now, let's look at a weakened or vulnerable immune system, okay? This is very common. So if you're somebody who's sick all the time and it's like, every time anybody sneezes or coughs around you, you're like literally getting sick, and then you're, freaked out all the time. You have a weak immune system, okay? Well, most of your immune system is located in your gut. So when your immune system is acting crazy, whether it's weak, whether it's in overdrive, whatever it is, you have to look to gut health, because that is going to be a huge factor. So next on our list is going to be skin problems. So if you're getting rashes, psoriasis, eczema, or even extreme acne, these are all signs that you may be facing leaky gut. And once again, it's just because when your gut health is really poor, it tends to manifest in poor skin health. And the unfortunate part is most people don't realize it. So they're going and spending tons of money at a dermatology appointment. They're spending tons of money on all these fancy potions and lotions and topicals. You're missing the whole point. It's your gut health. It has nothing to do with your skin needing more topical agents on it. So that's the thing to look out for. Joint pain. So if you're stiff all the time, joints hurt all the time, that could be a sign, because it's causing chronic inflammation in your body. So we have to make sure that whenever you're suffering from any of these types of inflammatory conditions, we circle back to gut health. Depression and anxiety, okay? So your gut is connected to your brain through something called the gut-brain axis. The gut-brain axis is going to be very instrumental in how your brain functions on a daily basis. Do you sleep well at night? Are you in a positive mood? Are you depressed? Do you have ambition? Do you feel a sense of well-being, right? So if you're feeling really just depressed, your mood's poor, you're not sleeping well at night, this has a lot to do with your gastrointestinal health. So it can also be that sign that something's going on, maybe leaky gut. Autoimmune diseases are the next thing we have to look at. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, if you're having a thyroid autoimmune problem, it doesn't matter what it is, autoimmune diseases will have some sort of correlation with your gut health. And so we have to really be careful about this. As I mentioned, if your immune system's acting crazy, if it's depressed, if it's in overdrive, causing an autoimmune condition where your immune system is attacking your body, then we have to look to a leaky gut problem for sure. And really we'll focus on improving our gastrointestinal health. And then migraines, okay? So migraines is another big one that is a cause of poor gastrointestinal health. Of course, migraines can come from a million reasons, but we have to realize it also can be correlated with this. So now that we talked about some of the top 10 signs, like one of the things we really want to focus on is what do we do about this, right? Because, you know, this is a bad situation. And as I mentioned, it's very typical for people to not address this and ignore these top 10 signs and then all of a sudden be very frustrated because, you know, they develop a chronic autoimmune condition, a disease that they cannot get under control. They're covered in skin rashes, they don't feel well, they're stiff, they hurt, you know, so many issues start to come out of this. So what do we do? So first thing that we can do here is we can look to some nutritional supplementation, okay? And before I get into nutritional supplementation, I do want to add, you should be following a healthy diet, okay? I will put resources to everything I mentioned here in the description below, but make sure that you're following a proper anti-inflammatory, healthy diet. I'll put a link to a cookbook that we use all the time in my clinic in order to help you basically kickstart this diet. But I always want to preface this because if I mention supplements, some people are like, well, what about diet? No, I'm gonna assume that you are following a healthy diet. Pull out the sugar, pull out all the artificial ingredients and the, you know, fake synthetic nasty stuff that's coming from labs that aren't even real food. Cut that stuff out, okay? So once you cut that out, then let's get serious too and look at some supplementation that has been proven to really help with the gastrointestinal, heal the gastrointestinal lining. So first on our list is gonna be L-glutamine, okay? This is an amino acid that's been shown to really get to healing the gastrointestinal lining. It's been shown to reverse intestinal mucosal damage, and also it really just drives the healing process. So I'm a big fan of that. Now, what we use is something like L-glutamine combined with like aloe vera, combined with like deglycerinized licorice root extract. So these things are all very beneficial. So you can kind of stack these compounds one on another, and then you'll find that it has a very good synergistic effect that can really improve your health. So that's something that is really beneficial here. Next is probiotics, okay? I love talking about probiotics because they are so cool to me. Probiotics are something that you absolutely need to make sure is part of your daily regimen because you want to make sure you're getting these good bacteria in, right? You may be getting them through a lot of fermented foods and fermented beverages, but you also can take them. And when you take these probiotics, it helps not only help digest your food, but improves your brain health, but it also is going to help with the healing process in your gastrointestinal system. And when you have probiotics that are in bugs in your microbiome is good and healthy, one of the things that will happen is it'll help stabilize the environment within the gut so that you don't get a whole bunch of fungus growing in your gut. You don't have a whole bunch of yeast issues and they fight off parasites, so many different things. So it's very important to make sure that you have a good healthy microbiome and diverse microbiome at that. And next on our list is going to be digestive enzymes. And this is really helpful during this time to take digestive enzymes because what it'll help you do is digest your food better, not only so you can get the nutrients out of it, but also so this food is digested and it's not just food particles crossing into your bloodstream, which is causing that autoimmune reaction. So we want to make sure that we are using some different tools like that in order to accomplish reversing this issue of leaky gut. So we have the top 10 signs. Look out for those. Now, I will tell you that when you're dealing with any of these gut issues, they can be very complex, they can be very frustrating, and they oftentimes can lead people to just want to give up altogether. But I'm telling you, you cannot give up on these gastrointestinal problems because they turn serious when you do not address them properly, and they typically don't go away. I mean, I've helped multiple people rehab back from gastrointestinal cancer, right? You know, sometimes they've come to me and they've had parts of their colon removed already. It's like we have to take these issues very, very seriously so that we don't end up in a position where we've taken it too far, or we have an autoimmune crisis that's too far and nobody can get it under control, not even with medicine in some cases. So we have to make sure that at all times we're striving for better health. And so if you enjoyed this video here, I think you'll really like this video over here next.